Let's talk herd.
I wish that more people realize that that world is there and that it's not something to be afraid of. And that,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, it's so comforting. I don't think I could live in a superficial way. It's a bit of a judgmental but it's just like how I feel about it when you're not connecting with those other
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
dimensions or yeah, and I just wish it was more part of our, heritage, or I don't know, the kind of human
Mm.
experience, really.
Well, I think it is. It's just from so long ago, we have to, if we don't have ancestors that remind us of that, then we have to do that deep work ourselves to remember.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Do you ever get frustrated with like feeling like you're kind of like you're unusual in what you do, or do you have a lot of friends who kind of get it, or where would you say, how do you feel about that?
Good question. Um, I think I've been this way for so long. I've
Mm.
always felt a little, not a little, I've always felt very different. There were
Mm.
definitely times in my younger adult years in my 20s and 30s where I, put the mask on and was in corporate America and
Mm.
was miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then it took, kind of reawakening. Um, but yeah, I've always felt just not. I've always felt a little um, different,
Mm.
definitely, um, and frustrated. Um, I don't. I'm not. I think it. I'm turning 60, so I have so many years behind me of going through so many different
Mm.
versions of myself, some good, some bad. And so um, I, I, I don't have a lot of frustration um, because I've, I can so identify with almost anyone,
Mm.
and I can
Yeah.
identify with mistakes that people have made because
Mm.
I have made so many mistakes.
Mm.
Um, And it's because of those situations that I kind of feel like I'm at where I'm at, and
Mm.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I do wish, if I could go back in time, I mean, I do wish I would have had more courage when I was younger
Mm.
to be and really embody who I was
Yeah.
rather than putting that mask on. If I could just kind of cut out like 20 years
Yeah.
and just stitch the rest of it together.
Mm.
But I, I think that it probably had to happen,
Yeah.
right? I learned a lot
Yeah.
because of that, a lot.
Exactly.
It, like you said, there's probably an easier way to learn that than I chose to, but
Maybe there wasn't though.
that's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of those things are just so uniquely perfect, aren't in the way that they unfold.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever feel though that you're just a just not I mean, I don't know if this, it just kind of came to me when we were talking about this, that sometimes I feel like it's almost like there's a kind of gap, like there's human beings, and humans are quite human. And then there's like people who've come to try and help humans, and that's not at all a sort of judgment or a like, I'm trying to think of the right words. It's not like, I don't mean that in a sanctimonious way at all. It's just like there feels sometimes like there's such a fundamental difference in the way I feel that I view things sometimes. I just think, God, I'm just not human. Like, I just don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. Like, a lot,
Mm-hmm.
mostly, I suppose, with things like medication and conventional, like the way
Mm-hmm.
that the health system works. And it's just so, to me, so. And maybe it's just my experience in life, and it's nothing really to do with that. Maybe everybody feels like that about their, you know, about the things that they are more awakened about. But it just sometimes feels like being on a different wavelength completely. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it it can um how do I want to say this? There's a part of me that would love to um and does love to just isolate myself
Hmm.
and avoid
Yeah.
all of this stuff that's happening.
Hmm.
And yet and yet it's really not possible to do that, right? Because I
Hmm.
we're all here right now. And so my my intention every day is to be present for whatever appears in that day.
Hmm.
So, if I have to go into the city, which energetically can be really taxing and draining for me,
Hmm.
um, then that's my practice for the day.
Hmm.
Being present in my body, being present with the people around me, keeping my energy we're talking about
Hmm.
love, right? So using
Yeah.
that HeartMath practice to be
Hmm.
that loving presence um,
Hmm.
in the midst of just crazy land. Um,
Yeah.
and by doing that, um, not that every time, but a lot of times there are just these beautiful moments that appear, these beautiful
Hmm.
little
So true.
miracles that
Yeah.
remind me that we are all the same thing. We are
Hmm.
all the
Yeah.
same. All the same.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
just me that came from start. We're all the same. We all breathe the same air. We're all taking in all of this energy and um, molecules that have been here for eons.
Hmm.
We're just each these beautiful, magnificent individual beings
Hmm.
on these different paths. And so I
Yeah.
try to, even in the midst of, challenges, to embody
Hmm.
that as much as
And
possible. Doesn't
yeah.
always
And
happen, but
yeah. It feels really good, that though, doesn't it? And when you analyze, like when I look at when I feel good and I feel really connected to my source, and I do feel part of everything. I don't feel that sort of.
Hmm.
So I think it just is another, it's another sort of ego trick in a way, that you kind of create
Hmm.
this separation, that you don't feel the same. And yeah,
Yeah.
because it's true. It's true. The only time you can really know that it's authentically, that something is true, is when it feels good and you feel good, and it's coming from
Hmm.
love, really. So yeah, I
Right.
think anything. Yeah. The rest of it's really just a fear thing, isn't it? That because it is quite a fearful thought that humans are some are some kind of different, like unevolved thing that
Hmm.
you know that just can't learn and keep having wars and destroying the planet and stuff. It is a fear-based perspective. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's kind of the what it's always about, isn't it? Just kind of learning what's what and what comes from where, and just to be in that place. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember kind of going back to that image of, you know, the fish in water. I remember somewhere along the lines, in a book or something, someone said, just if you go about your life as though you are living in love, like
Mm,
everywhere you
yeah.
go, you're
Mm,
breathing love. Everything is representation of love.
yeah.
Um, then then people that bother you or frustrate you, or your horse that's frustrating for whatever reason,
Mm,
then in that little fishbowl of love, then how do we respond in love to
mm,
that situation?
yeah.
And gosh, that's whenever I think about that, it's like the most powerful thing I can think about, because
So
it totally switches me out of
yeah.
any frustration, judgment in an instant.